I'm delighted to say Cathal Dennehy is with us. Cathal, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
You've been on this beat a long time, but it's never been as vibrant and as interesting from an Irish perspective, I suspect.
Yeah, been on it about 10 years now, and we've certainly never had an athlete with the trajectory that Rashida Adeleke currently has. I mean, she is probably, if you're talking about the world's best female 400 metre runner, she's probably number 2 or 3 at the moment, and a month out from a World Championships and 12 months out from an Olympics. That's a very exciting place to be for Irish athletics. So
she made her professional debut last night, and we can get into the semantics of the language, in a 200 metres event in Hungary.
Yeah, she ran 200, her first pro race since going pro and signing with Nike the other day, and she ran 22:36, which is her second fastest time ever. Her national record is 22:34, which she ran with a good tailwind back in Florida in April. And this was very impressive debut to run 200 metres in that time. It really, to me, it's impressive because she's gone from Texas to Hungary. I think that's 7 time zones. She's gone across the world. Often athletes will be a little jet lagged and run a little flat, and the American-based athletes on their first race in Europe. And she's done it right between 2 peaks. So her peak was timed for the NCAA Championships, which were 5.5 weeks ago. And she's obviously building up now towards the second peak, which is the World Champs in a little over 4 weeks' time. And she'll have taken a break after the NCAA Championships and just be back training now and building up the fitness again for those World Champs. So to come out and start like that is highly impressive. And really, it was a rust buster to probably get her ready for the Monaco Diamond League on Friday night, where she'll be taking on the world's best over 400 metres.
So the 400 is definitely the career trajectory. But as a 400 metre runner, you can also run these 200s, which is useful for Diamond League and for championships. If it so works out that you want a rust buster at a major championship, you can do that, I suspect. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she can always run these 200s to get ready, and she is a European under-20 champion at 200 and was, I suppose, a 200 metre specialist until about a little over a year ago, I suppose. And so, yeah, she can keep doing these, but I think the double at the World Championships, while she is qualified now for the World Championships over 200 metres, 99% she won't run the 200 metres at Worlds, because the final or the heats of the 200 metres are the morning of the final of the 400 metres.
Right.
Like 7 or 8 hours between them. So assuming she makes the 400 metre final, she won't waste her energy that morning by running the 200. But she'll probably be entered though in case something goes wrong in the semi-final or false start or anything like that.
Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone is a name that I think Derval O'Rourke brought up on the show with us before. She obviously gets to test herself in Monaco on Friday against her. She's gone from hurdles to flat. Will that kind of show us where she's at in comparison to her? I guess she's the one to beat.
Absolutely, yeah. Sydney is, the queen of 400 metre hurdles. She's broken every record and won every medal there is to win in that sphere. And since then, she's looking for a new challenge, and that challenge is breaking what most people consider the unbreakable record of Marita Koch in the 400 metres. That's 47.60. Sydney hasn't got close to that, which speaks volumes about the legitimacy of that record. But she's run 48.74 to win the US title this month, Sydney. So that's about a half a second clear of Rashida's best time on season's best. So Rashida is definitely going to be up against it on Friday night. I wouldn't expect her to, challenge her personal best of 49.20, but if she could run anything like in the mid 49 seconds, that would set her up perfectly. And I think really it's a good test and benchmark a month out for the World Championships about what she's going to be up against, because it's not just Sydney. You've got Natalia Kazmarek in there, a very good Polish athlete who ran a national record of 49.48 last weekend in Poland. So just racing athletes like that, and I think even just stripping away the respect that I suppose Rashida will probably have, even though she won't fear them, and just to get on the track beside them would be a great kind of acid test before she takes them on again at the World Championships.
We were talking in the aftermath of the NCAA victory about the potential for going pro and what it actually means. Now that it's happened, does all of this make sense to you in terms of the planning and how it's all going to work? Presumably Nike came in and were like, this is available to you now, would you like to take it? And the coaching situation is sorted out, and so what can you tell us about that kind of mechanics of that and what it means for where she is at the moment?
Yeah, well, I'm not actually 100% on what her plans are, but I would be 99% sure that Rashida will stay based in Texas, at least until the Paris Olympics, under the guidance of Edric Floriel, because he's got guided her so well over the last 2.5 years, and her trajectory just keeps going upwards. And I know Rashida is very focused on education as well, and a lot of people I saw in the comment sections online were like, oh, why is she turning professional? She needs to finish her education. But those aren't mutually exclusive. Normally, if you do turn professional and you want to finish your education, that would be built into your professional contract, that Nike would pay the tuition for the rest of her education. And maybe it'll be next year, maybe it'll be 5 years from now, but she would have the freedom and flexibility to finish her classes, I suppose, at Texas. I think she's only 1 year left. But in terms of her setup, yeah, I'd expect her to be based at Texas. Edric has coached many athletes. He did it when he was college coach in Kentucky. He actually coached Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone before many years ago, so he'll know how to coach against her, I suppose. He did have a group of pros. In recent years, he wasn't coaching any professional athletes in Texas, but he has said he would commit to doing it again for Rashida and, of course, the NCAA 100-meter champion, Julian Alfred. So it will change a little bit the setup, because as a professional athlete, you're not supposed to train with the college team anymore, so it could become more of a lonely existence. There are ways around that. I think if they put you in as a volunteer coach on paper, I think you might be able to continue training with the team. But yeah, so it might just be a little bit set up. It might be a little bit lonelier for Rashida next year, but ultimately I think 95% of her setup will remain exactly the same.
Is there a pathway there in terms of the timing, Cathal? Like, I guess turning pro in the third year of a Olympic cycle, does that make sense in your book? Like, I guess she has the next 12 months to structure as she sees fit.
I think it absolutely does. I mean, people were saying, I know even someone as respected as Eamon Coughlin I saw there, and one of the off the ball clips saying, from a few months back, that he thought she should stay in college for another couple of years. But I disagree, I suppose, primarily on a financial level, because Rashida will never get a bigger offer than she's getting right now. In terms of shoe contracts, they don't really reward what you're doing at the moment or what you've done in the past year. It's all a bet, it's a gamble, and it's a gamble on potential. And the time to get the biggest offer by far is when you're on a steep upward trajectory. So if Rashida stayed in college another year and she was running 49.2 and winning NCAAs a year down the road, her offer would actually be way down on what it is now, because her trajectory is so steeply curving upwards. They're betting that she might be the next Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, and that's why big offers will have been put on the table in front of Rashida by multiple brands over the last few weeks. And yeah, it's no surprise to see she's gone with Nike, because they sponsor the University of Texas, and there is a link there with her college coach. So yeah, it's exciting times ahead, and I think this is really the perfect time. She's done it all and won it all now in the NCAA, so it's time to take her talents to the Diamond League. What kind of earning potential does somebody like Rashida Adeleke now have? Like, when we were talking about big offers from the shoe companies, what kind of offers would they be? They would be, I was at the Oslo Diamond League recently and just asked a couple of agents this, and one of the US-based agents who's good experience working with NCAA champions, he said it's hard to know, because with an Irish athlete, that they wouldn't really reward your being Irish, because basically the size of the market, you'll be on billboards, you'll be on newspapers, but Nike might look at it and say, well, that's a country of 5 million people, whereas like if you're that in the US and you're in a country of 300 million, it's worth so much more to them. So that would actually make her contract smaller than if she was an American running the same times. But the agent I spoke to estimated that a contract of between $200,000 and $400,000 a year would be being put on the table in front of Rashida in recent weeks. That's brilliant. And then now all of a sudden, of course, she's liable to win. She's capable of winning the prize money and accepting the prize money in the Diamond League. Is there an American equivalent to the Diamond League that we would have grown up with in Europe? What do professional runners in America, how do they earn their money in races? They basically just come to Europe. Right. The pro scene in US is not great. There are a couple of Continental Tour gold meets, which is what the meet last night was in Hungary. But that's one tier down from Diamond League. So the prize money is a little bit lower. The fields are a little bit less deep. And yeah, Diamond Leagues are up the top. And there's only, is it the New York, I think, is the only Diamond, or there's 2 Diamond Leagues. There's one in Oregon and, there is only one Diamond League in the US, and that's in Oregon in September every year. So most of the kind of professional circuit is based in Europe. So I think what we'd see from Rashida as we look towards the Paris Olympics will be that she'll probably run a few early season races like most of the Americans would do in April and May to just tune up a bit, and then get over to Europe for a few races through June and July. And then obviously the Paris Olympics will be end of July next year.
You used the word trajectory there earlier, Cathal, like, and we spoke with Vicky Wall's unbelievable Irish sporting story earlier in the show. Like, when you think about Rashida, like, to go from Presentation College in Terenure and all of the sports that she tried as a kid and a teenager, I think basketball and athletics were the last two left on the decision making list, and then to even go from the disappointment of Tokyo missing out on the team there to this, a shoe deal with Nike. Like, this is one of the great Irish sporting stories.
It really is, yeah. I mean, you would have seen it from many years coming, but there's so many athletes who've been as good as Rashida at the age of, or similar to Rashida in terms of exciting talent at the age of 14, 15, 16, who just fizzle out, burn out or fade away. But I think with Rashida, you have to credit, you know, I think there's three things with an athlete that makes them get to this level. It's their own discipline and drive, and she has that. It's having good parents around you who steer you correctly and are actually on board with what you're trying to do, and Rashida has that. And it's having a good coach as well, and Rashida has had that, you know, in terms of Johnny Fox, her juvenile coach, handing it over to Daniel Kilgallen, and Daniel's project for 2 or 3 years before she went to Texas was to just get her ready, her strong enough and mechanically sound enough to withstand what was coming at her in the NCAA. And obviously Edric Floriel, a truly world-class coach, has just built on all that and brought her to the level she's at. And so I think, yeah, all those three things, you know, combine to make Rashida what she is.
Not to labour the point on the money, right? But just because we are always fascinated by the football contracts and that kind of is. But in terms of Diamond League prize money, then, like, what's the difference? What is available to you if you perform well in the Diamond League over a 12-month period?
It's pretty poor relative to other sports. You know, you're talking about golf there a while ago, and I'm sure the golfers would laugh. You know, if you finished 50th on the PGA Tour, you probably get more than you do for winning a Diamond League. But I think it's $10,000 for winning a Diamond League, maybe $8,000 for second, and then like Continental Tour, like the meet last night, I think might be $4,000 or $5,000 maybe for a win, $3,000 or $4,000 for second. But at the Diamond League final, then I think you can win like 40 or 50,000 for first. That would be in Oregon in September. So I'm sure Rashida will be going there. And then World Championships, there's prize money available as well. I think that's maybe $60,000 for first, and maybe 40,000 for silver, something like that.
That's why you need to be a business person as well as actually being an athlete. It's a bit like the jockeys, where you need to manage your career incredibly well to maximise your earning potential, to give you the freedom to be able to train in the blocks that you want to, and that's why any of these contracts that she has with any of her sponsors are going to be incredibly important in the coming years.
Exactly, because at the level you get to, I know some Irish athletes, once they break through to international level, can look at an agent and go, like, they're going to take 15% is pretty standard. Sometimes the bigger the contract, sometimes you can negotiate it down a bit. Like, I'm sure Usain Bolt or someone, when he was on 10 million a year from Puma, might have been on 7 or 8% to his agent or something like that. But normally it's 15%. And a lot of athletes, when they get their first contract, might look at that and go, like, what do you actually do to take 15% of my earnings, you know? But I think the more I've been around the sport, the more you do see the value of an agent is absolutely massive, because they're the ones who are negotiating to get you into a meet, and they're the ones who are getting you on a good lane in a lot of those Diamond Leagues, and they're the ones, you know, who are sitting down with the brands, and if one brand isn't giving you your value, they have decades of experience to go, well, I know what this other brand is going to give you, you know. So ultimately an agent is an absolutely key element of it. I haven't actually heard yet who Rashida's agent is, but I won't speculate. I've heard a couple of different people mentioned, but we'll find out. She's doing a round of interviews back in Ireland on Monday, so I'm sure we'll find out more about her path forward then.
The age profile, I guess, it points to how this makes sense, because, like, she's 20 years of age, and as different athletes have pointed out, ex-athletes between the age of 20, 23, 24, things can go wrong. I think Seb Coe said you're only ever a hamstring away from oblivion. So to do it now is probably the best time.
Absolutely, yeah. This is the time to go pro and enter this world. And, you know, she's going to be, if she stays healthy, she's going to be out there on the pro scene for the next decade. She's still only 20, we have to remind ourselves. And, you know, the likes of Shawnee Miller-Weibo, who she's a very similar athlete to Shawnee Miller-Weibo, the two-time Olympic champion of 400, because she is that kind of 200, 400 athlete. You know, she's just out on maternity leave at the moment and making her way back. She won't be back in time for the World Championships, but she'll definitely be back in time for the Paris Olympics. And, you know, there's no reason this won't be the first of like 3 or 4 Olympics that Rashida can go to. So I think this is the time to get out there, get the experience under your belt. And also, you know, Rashida ran about 50 races last year between relays, and, you know, the best one of all was the European final. It was the 50th race, I think, or 49th race of the year. But I think, you know, ideally, if you're sitting down and planning a season and planning your peak peak, I don't think any athlete would race that much. And the fact she won't have the NCAA burden, and I suppose it's been a blessing really because she's run well off it, but I suppose just exhausting you and all the travel that's involved in that, the fact she'll be able to spend her energy a bit more wisely and carefully next year, I think can only be a benefit to her on the path to Paris.
We basically used all our available time talking about Rashida because it's such a big story at the moment, but we shouldn't let the moment pass without mentioning Sophie O'Sullivan and the 1-2 with Sarah Healy at the Euro under-23s. How good could Sophie O'Sullivan be?
Very good. I mean, she's bundles of talent, and I'd say the same with Sarah Healy. You know, they're both 22 years old, and it was astonishing, and they both had different paths but similar trajectories because they both struggled a bit coming out of under 20 level, just a rocky year or two, and they're both back flying now. They found that kind of consistency of training. And yeah, Sophie has she's built up the endurance base, but she has the wheels of her mum Sonia that we all saw coming home there in the last 100 metres the weekend. And Sarah Healy, it's great to see her back running so well. She's moved into a properly professional setup now, over training in England with Trevor Painter, who coaches the Olympic silver medalist Keely Hodgkinson. So very exciting things for them ahead. And we also had, I suppose, just to drop in a quick mention, Brian Fay and Andrew Coscoran of the Dublin Track Club training group with Phelan Kelly, absolutely smashing the Irish records there at the weekend, both taking 2 seconds off the 5k and the 1500 metre records. So very exciting times. And then when you look to junior level, Nick Griggs with an Irish under 20 record in foul conditions at the Morton Games as well. So I think the middle distance is definitely making a huge resurgence for Ireland, and we'll see a lot more Irish athletes lining up in European and maybe even world or Olympic finals. But I think, yeah, in terms of medals, I think Rashida is the one to look to for the next couple of years.
Carl, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.